okay, so hear me out, right? You see some of these girls, we could even call them city girls if you want to, but you see a lot of these girls who are like super confident and maybe even arrogant to an extent, and very bougie and stuff like that. I'm curious. I wonder if that's just like an overcompensation and they probably are just as neurotic and have just as low self-esteem as any other lady, but they've just found some way to like mask it. Or do you think those are the women who have overcome those insecurities and they're just feeling confident and like, you know, bad bitch, like they're just kind of doing their thing? You think they're covering it up, or do you think they got over it?
In today's day and age, I think more people are covering up their problems than getting over them.
Yeah.
I do think there's a lot of talk about self-awareness and self-motivation and self-discipline and overcoming your fears in today's world, but there's so many problems out there, and then COVID happened, and mental illness is at an all-time high, or at least talking about it is at an all-time high. I think it was always there, but it was never really talked about. Now it's actually like out there in the open. So not just women, I think men too. I think men are covering it up more than women, to be honest. Women have always had, not this past, but they've always had this openness to be allowed in society to talk about their problems and to show their emotions. Men overall typically have had this stigma around that you can't talk about your emotions or be open about your emotions. You can't boys, guys, men don't cry. That's always been a thing. Men can't be as vulnerable as women. So I think there's more men walking around covering up their feelings and maybe their low self-esteems than women, but both do a pretty good job in today's day and age. And I mean, are there confident women and confident men? Absolutely.
Right.
But I feel like it's the opposite right now. I feel like there's a lot more people with a lot more problems, and women are more open to talk about it than men.
Yeah, they're definitely, yeah. Vulnerability is a big thing. Yeah, the amount of times I've heard a girl complain that her guy isn't like vulnerable enough or whatever. I think too, like, man.
Do you think that's making like I know it's starting to be talked about, and like, women want men to be vulnerable and open up to them, but I don't know. Do they really want the man to be vulnerable and open and emotional? Like, is that kind of just like a upfront thing that they're saying, or deep down do they truly want that? Because I always feel like, I mean, in the history of mankind, men have always had to be the hard nose, down to get down and dirty and work, and
Right.
never really talk about their emotions. Like, do females still want the man to provide and to kind of just go through life without being emotional, or do they truly want men to be vulnerable?
Yeah.
Like, is that a face, or is that not? Is that a real thing?
Right. So, okay, so here's the thing, right? I see a lot of memes of this and comments and stuff like that. There's all those discussions online about what you just said. I think a lot of times in the past, guys have been quote unquote vulnerable with their women, and then the women got turned off by it, and so the guys,
Yeah. So does it just backfires?
right, they're like, I'm not doing that shit again. So here's what I think they're looking for, and I don't know if there's a right way to word it, but I don't think women want guys to be vulnerable or quote unquote soft all the time, because as we know, that's probably a turnoff. Like, if you're with a woman and she's more neurotic than you are and you're soft and complaining all the time, well, she's gonna be like, why, what, like, I'm already stressed out, this guy's supposed to help me not be stressed out, he's just making it worse. Let me go with the guy who is gonna be comforting me and strong and stuff, right? So I think the key, and this is just a theory, let me know what you think, but I think the key is, as a guy, you get shit for not being vulnerable, but then you get shit for being too vulnerable. So I think the key is
So
to
lose.
I think the key is to be vulnerable, but still have like a strong mindset. So for example, okay, let's say there's an issue and the girl's stressed about it. If you don't like have any vulnerability, she's gonna be like, damn, like I want this guy to open up about whatever he's going through. But if you're too vulnerable and you complain and like, I don't know, maybe cry or whatever, then she'll be like, Jesus Christ, he's so fucking soft. Like, damn, I don't want to be around this. I think the key though is to like share what you're thinking. I think women really like to know what a guy's thinking. Like share what you're thinking, but still take care of business. Because I think sometimes when people get too vulnerable, they get really caught up in the emotion and they forget that they actually have to like get shit done. I don't know. What do you? I'm spitballing here. What do you think?
I see what you're saying. No, yeah, I think it's a fine line. You know, the lady doesn't want him to be emotional and, you know, pout and cry and be poor me all day, every day.
Right.
Because if you're gonna act that way, I'm pretty sure she's gonna leave pretty fast.
Yep.
But you know, every now and then you can open up to your lady, and like you said, as long as you're getting shit done, you know, I think you have more freedom to be more open about it.
Right. Right.
So like the more you do and the more you get done, I feel like the more you can kind of talk about your emotions and your vulnerable states, as long as you're still getting everything that you need to get done. Especially if you're still like, if you are the provider of the household, quote unquote, or if you're in a family and, you know, if you're the breadwinner as the male, as long as you're still like maintaining that role. And if you have a wife who's a stay-at-home mom, which, you know, stay-at-home moms are great. If you want to be a stay-at-home mom, they're needed. So there's nothing wrong with it. But also, if you want to be a businesswoman and do that too, great. You know, it's your choice.
Thing. Yeah.
Exactly. Do your thing. So as long as you know, as long as you're like maintaining the role that you are in the relationship and still holding that, then I feel like you have more freedom.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I'm just thinking of like a scenario, right? Like I'm thinking of a husband and wife. Let's say the dude had a rough day at work. Let's say he's the breadwinner. If he doesn't say anything and he's just like grumpy, not saying a word, she's probably going to be like, oh, I want you to open up. I need you to be more vulnerable, whatever, right? In another scenario, dude comes home from work and he's like pouting and like all upset and stuff, and he doesn't even know what he's going to do, right? I guess the perfect balance between that would be if he came home, shared his thoughts with her, and then ended it with like, I appreciate you listening, but I know how I'm gonna deal with this. I just wanted to like share it. So then she knows like, okay, he's being vulnerable, but also like he's strong enough to deal with it.
Yeah, too. If you show that you have like a plan to deal with your problems, not just like openly talk about them, but never do anything about them, you know, there's a difference there as well. So, you know, be proactive in solving your issues than just coming home and pouting about it with no plan. Because I bet you pretty quickly after that, she'd probably leave you too.
Very true.
Very honest. True.